People, and here I guess I mean my lawyers and the parole board, have been talking a lot lately about remorse. But what they don't seem to understand is, while I agree, yes, it's too bad about my so-called crimes, and yes, I wish things had turned out differently, my feeling remorseful or not remorseful won't change what happened even a little bit. Not only that, and I'm definitely not trying to escape blame by bringing this up, it's clear to me at least that this whole affair, the so-called crime spree, the hostages, the shootout in the frozen yogurt parlor, all that could have been avoided if only that undercover cop to whom I was demonstrating how if he kept his holster unsnapped, anyone could just walk right up and take his pistol away, had just had a better sense of humor. But that's only for the record. Before all this, I was a licensed pharmacist. The pharmacy that I ran for 20 years allowed me reasonable access to the quantities of drugs I needed to support my moderate habit. I first began my addiction, as so many others have, one day in the 2nd grade when a local drug pusher passed a marijuana cigarette through the chain link fence of my schoolyard.
Hey kid, you wanna try this?
The next day he was back.
Hey mister, you got anything else?
The effect was like nothing I'd ever experienced. The closest I had come was once, when watching Sesame Street, I'd held my breath to the point of blacking out. I was convinced I was on television and could see Big Bird staring straight into my eyes. I used my lunch money for drugs, and by high school I was selling to my friends. By 10th grade I knew 2 things: that I wished to continue taking drugs for the rest of my life, and second, that I should find a way to do it legally. I decided to be a pharmacist, and life went smoothly for 20 years. But as we all know, change is inevitable. For me, oddly enough, the first change occurred one afternoon while getting a haircut and watching a nature special about golden retrievers. Between glimpses in the mirror, I looked into the eyes of one particular animal, a golden-backed retriever named Lincoln. Lincoln revealed the existence of a soul without a human mask to hide behind. I found myself thinking about him incessantly while doing menial tasks around the pharmacy. It was here I decided, I'm going to the dog park to find him. I began collecting things from around the store that I knew he'd love. I started frequenting the dog park and spotted Lincoln and his owner. Little by little, I gave him treats during these visits. By the end of the week, the 2 of us were sharing our own private joke. Then with increasing frequency, I added drugs to the snacks, watching with relief and gratitude as memory of his owner escaped his sensitive features. Then one afternoon, while the owner was distracted, I ran off with him. I believed then, and still believe, that the dream of returning to the simplicity of our first world, that of the animal, is as old as mankind. To look into those eyes, after a while I learned to keep the light on, that see only you, to ride or be ridden without thought of destination or consequence, to hear words and sounds which, because the loved and the lover speak no common language, seem to originate in the labials of the soul. Surely that must be love itself. We would spend evenings in the television room, where I quickly learned he liked shows with action, westerns, car chases, and Disney films about heroic animals being his favorites. To the nature programs that had introduced me to the world of golden retrievers, he was surprisingly indifferent. And so it went for 3 glorious years. Even before I met Lincoln, I'd been in the habit of hosting a weekly poker game, and I saw no reason to alter this tradition following his arrival.
I says to the guy, I says, you either have one or you don't.
So great. Classic.
Gorgeous weather we're having. Yeah, I don't know what I would do without Lincoln in my life.
In the bloom of our relationship, I have to say, he paid no attention to Elise at all. But one evening, after a minor argument earlier that day, I noticed him brushing up against Elise's surprisingly blonde body.
Yeah, Lincoln, he's just really, he loves me so much. You'll have to buy him all the Twinkies.
We're going cold turkey.
To hell you are.
Oh, wow. Come here, Lincoln. Do you love me? Lincoln.
It's mine.
Ew. Take him. Get out. And that was it. Together they climbed into her fully restored 2002 Chrysler convertible PT Cruiser and drove into the night. Cold turkey. They apparently began the treatment the following day. Within 24 hours, Elise was dead, killed by an armoire that Lincoln had tipped on her. Lincoln, who never had a good sense of direction, took a wrong turn, ended up in a parking garage, unable to find the exit. He was killed by an off-duty highway patrolman. According to some, violence is a seed that, when planted early in life, must eventually come to fruition. William Blake describes it as a toxic tree, which with little tending can be lethal. Yet there are those who, to put it simply, don't seem to have a green thumb. Those whose natures are so completely benign that no matter what is done to them, they never fight back. On the other hand, however, I suppose for every one of those, there are others who, after a life drenched in the milk of human kindness, suddenly become irritable, have had enough, won't take it anymore, go to a gun store, climb up on a rooftop, bring plenty of food, water, ammo, and start blasting. Oddly enough, I still am not certain to which of these groups I belong.
My world is empty without you, babe.
My recovery from the loss of Lincoln was slow and steady. I joined a chapter of Survivors Anonymous.
He was the love of my life, a golden retriever. One thing led to another, and it got crazy, and I lost him. He's gone.
It's gonna be okay.
In time, my life went pretty much back to normal. I measured prescriptions, came home, ate, watched a cop show, catered to my addiction, sat around in a sort of reverie, and then went to bed. Or so I thought until that fateful Thursday morning when the undercover cop walked into the pharmacy to buy Jock Itch. I noticed his gun holster. I grabbed the pistol. He reached for another pistol he had on his ankle. I shot first. I fled, though I never expected to escape punishment. But why should I sit around and wait? I drove to San Francisco.
Can I have a crab salad and white wine? Okay. Thanks.
By evening, I was lodged in a quaint coastal inn, staring at the 10 o'clock news that announced the death of the vanity-ridden undercover cop and included a photo of me and Lincoln, with the lurking, strange melancholy behind his deep brown eyes, as if through some animal instinct unknown to me, he had already foreseen where all of this would lead. Why am I relating all this? The parole board, the governor, the courts have spoken, and frankly, the gist of their message is that I'm some kind of heartless person. Am I? I suppose the reason I'm telling you this story is to find that very answer. Finally, I pulled into a parking lot of a frozen yogurt parlor and crashed right through the facade. An opossum had crawled through a hole I had made for Lincoln to relieve himself. A crowd came round, and one of the crowd dwellers used his cane to knock the opossum out. "Leave him alone," I said. "Stop," I yelled, and fired the gun into the air. I proceeded to get my soft servant toppings with extra whipped cream. It was delicious. The simple act of consuming something sweet and cool seemed to decrease much of the anxiety that had built up. Police arrived, and I stayed under siege and ate frozen yogurt for 2 days with 4 local teenagers as captives. I expect my lawyers still may make a couple more appeals, that there will be a stay, and then there won't. But in the end, I don't think that anything is going to make much difference. And when I'm strapped down, the tubes in place, the needle lying in my vein like some old memory, I know that I'll see everyone again. I'll feel myself being pulled upward, and at the other end will be a paw, a massive one, covered with golden hair, smelling of honey and wheat germ shampoo, a hand that's strong enough to stand the strain of all of us.
Come to me, Rain.
Simply put, it is just that artificial labels such as crook and not a crook exist only in the minds of people that are applying them. To just say, "I'm sorry," immediately raises the question, for what? At what point in the endless chain of cause and effect does one decide to want to change things? If there was ever a choice, it was not ours, and by the time we realized that we might do things differently, it was already far too late.